And visually, we talked about in class that if we had this problem right, if we had this graph right here of y equals f of x, and we're looking at a point, let's say A, and we want to find this point, right? We want to find, basically, this is the equation of the line that we want to find, which I'll call L. And this line L has a slope M. L is tangent to f of x at x equals A. All right, so that's one information. Our whole job is really about finding that equation L, that tangent line. Other piece of information that we know is that L includes the point A comma f of A. And finally, the slope of L is found by finding f prime of A. So L is tangent. We want to find that equation of that tangent line at a point x equals A. Because L is tangent at A, that point A f of A is a point on its line, on the line. And finally, the slope of L is found by finding f prime of A, or we could say that the slope of L is f prime of A. I could have said that. All right. And we know that f prime of A is equal to, can somebody help me with this formula? I want you to, we got to repeat it as much as you can in calculus because you'll forget it later on when it becomes very important. And of course, right now you need to do it in basically all of your homework problems.
Are you talking about the f open parentheses x plus h, that?
Yeah, but there's one I want, so we'll start at limit. But yes, the other part is true, yes. So it's the limit as
X approaching 0.
h. Limit as h approaches 0 of it's in your notes that you found. You should be able just to look over and be able to just tell me what it is directly in your notes. Of course, if you can find it on your own.
F open parentheses x plus h close parentheses.
A plus h, because we're going to find it at A. Close parentheses.
F of A.
Good.
Over H.
Very good. And you're still going to use this formula right here. All right. You're going to get some value in this one. It is not, it's going to be, this is an expression. You're not going to get like an equation like x or 2x or so forth like that. All right. Finally, we want to introduce today the point slope equation of a line. So what is the point slope equation of a line? This is an algebra review. This is from a prior course. Does anybody remember? And we'll use the algebra form. If you want to use x1 or y1, you can utilize those ones to right now. I'm going to rewrite it afterwards. But what is the point slope equation of a line?
Isn't it like y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1?
Perfect. To find the equation of a line, knowing the slope and a point, you know a point, which in this case, the point is a f of a, and the slope is f prime of a, we can rewrite this formula. All right, we can rewrite this formula as y minus f of a equals f prime of a, parentheses x minus a. And it's the same formula, except this is using function and derivative notation. So it's the same formula, but this when I write the formula, when we write the formula in calculus, this is how we want to visualize the formula. Y minus f of a. Now notice that there is only one y that is in our answer. There's only a single y. There's only a single y, and there's only a single x. First thing that you'll know if you've done something incorrectly is if you have like x parentheses x. If you see that and you see x being multiplied by each other twice, you know you've done something wrong. Typically that happens when students find the derivative function rather than the derivative at a point. So, i.e. y minus 5 equals 2 parentheses x minus 4. That's kind of how an answer is. And this is an answer on point slope form. The last, I'm thinking of all this mostly as being vocabulary, things that we need to recognize. We have slope intercept form. And can anybody just remind me what slope intercept form is?
Like y equals mx plus b?
Y equals mx plus b. The reason why I'm writing this part right here is that some answers on AP multiple choice require final answer in slope intercept form. Point slope correct for most answers. So what I'm trying to say here in this last part is that while when you write the equation as y minus, right here, so when you write the answer like this is an answer. And that's an equation of a line. So if you were to type that into, and I'll double check right afterwards, but if you plug the answer like this into your Delta Math, it's correct. That's the equation of a line. This is the equation of a line. Most students feel like when I ask for an equation of a line, they think it has to be like this. You have to have the equation written like this. Now, it's good practice to turn and to manipulate all of the functions like this, and you can get it into the form like this by using some algebra techniques. Mostly that you need to distribute the 2 or distribute the slope value to both of them, and then you would have to add the 5 to both of them on both sides to get to a slope intercept form. Slope intercept form is nice because when you graph it, you can clearly see what the y-intercept is, and you can clearly see what the slope is. That's why you have that form. But in calculus, the majority of the problems that we're going to work with, you're going to know what the slope is, or you're going to find what the slope is, and you know one single point. A lot of you, for those of you who are going to keep trying to do the, you're going to try to work with this form and this form only, in finding your equation, you are going to make more mistakes than any individual who works with this one. Now, it's not to say that you're wrong. You are good math is good math in my class. However, it's not the most efficient, and it's longer. And what I mean, that's what I mean by efficient. But when I say that not the most efficient, it's both longer and more prone to making some silly math mistakes that even I make all the time when I do, adding numbers, or you're dealing with more things. You want to work with this form right here. So the equation of and I'm just reiterating what I wrote above, the equation of the line tangent to y equals f of x at x equals a is y minus f of a equals f prime of a parentheses x minus a. I just want to make that formula big and clear. That's the most important formula that you're probably going to have, that you will utilize over and over and over and over and over for the next month or so. So that formula right there. Now, for now, must find f prime of a using the definition. Don't worry, you're not going to have to use the definition of the derivative for the entire course. Next week, at some point next week, I don't know if it'll be mid to late next week, I'm going to show, we're going to be focusing on other ways to find f prime of a, what we refer to as analytically. Right now, you have to find it. You have to find it using limits, but we're going to show you tricks. And some of you may already know the tricks. Some of you may have a sibling or a tutor or a classmate who has shown you how to find the slope of x squared at a point. We're going to learn and focus that on next week, but right now we have tangent lines. Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Above the y minus f of a, what does that say?
Equation of the line tangent to y equals f of x.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Let's look at an example. Now, in these problems, typically it's like a two-step. It's a three-part answer. Okay. First part is finding the slope. Second part is, or actually I guess it's two. Is finding the equation of the line. So typically when we do these problems, there's actually 2 points. You get 1 point for identifying the correct slope, and then you get 1 point for writing the equation of the line correctly. Now, in these early stages, of course, it's more than just 1 point for finding the slope, because you're going to have to show your work to find the slope to do them. So we're going to find the equation of the line tangent to f of x equals 2x squared minus 4 at x equals 3. So this is the problem that we are trying to solve right here. We're going to find the equation of the line tangent to 2x squared minus 4 at x equals 3. Now, visually, all right, visually, you don't have to do this, but visually 2x squared minus 4 basically looks like this, and our tangent line at 3 is going to kind of go like that. All right, that's what visually is going on. Now you don't have to do what's going visually, but if you do, sometimes if you check things visually, you can see if your answer makes sense. So in this case, it seems most obvious that my slope's going to be that my y-intercept will be negative in my final answer, and my slope is going to be positive in this problem. So these are all very important pieces that will help me confirm if my answer was correct. So what do I do? Now the first thing I want to do always when I do these problems, step 1, write the formula for point slope at the indicated point. All right, so what is the equation of the tangent line at the indicated point? We're going to write it out in the long form. So what is it? Basically what I have boxed up, but we're going to replace the a with the value of a.
Y minus, and then wouldn't it be,
I don't want you to find a number.
oh, F of A,
I want you to replace the a though.
or 3,
Mm-hmm.
the 3,
Yep.
equals F of 3
Close. F prime of 3 times
X minus 3.
x minus 3. So my recommendation is that you write this down as your first step. Now, it's add 3. If you want to write the regular formula with the a's in there, that's okay. Just make sure you don't try to write y minus f of x. That's the biggest mistake I see. That usually leads down to a rabbit hole of further mistakes, and we want to try to clean that up as early as we can. So I want to find the equation of the tangent line at x equals 3 for this function. Now, what we need to realize now is that there are 2 unknowns in here. What are the 2 unknowns? What are the 2 pieces of information now that I have to find?
Y and X.
No, y and x are in my answer. My answer has y, my answer has x. It's an equation of a line, so it has to have y and it has to have x.
Is it your prime thingy and then the F of 3?
Yeah, so the f and the f prime. So f of 3 and f prime of 3. Basically, all you got to do now is find f prime of 3. So now we know step 2. Sorry. So step 2, I like to find f prime of 3 as my next step. All right. So now it becomes like last night's homework. Now we are doing what we did in last night's homework. And now you can see why if you can't do last night's homework or the topics that we've done, as often happens in calculus, we struggle or we have to relearn it or we have to make sure that we get it down so that we can do the next piece because what we and this happens quite a bit. What we learn in one lesson and that lesson could even be over multiple days becomes just one step in a future problem. So I want to find f prime of 3, and f prime of 3 is equal to the limit as h approaches 0 of, and I'll write this one first right here, f of 3 plus h minus f of 3 all over h. So I got to find this. I got to find f prime of 3. How do I find f prime of 3? I have to use the definition of the derivative because that's all you have learned into this class. Now, there are other ways to find f prime of 3. Yes, but we're not focusing on those other ways, and I have not yet shown you or taught you how to use them. So our main focus of the lesson that I'm looking for is when you get graded is, did you use the definition of the derivative correctly? You might be like, well, I got the right answer, so my final tangent line is correct, but part of the assignment here and part of the grading rubric will include using the limit and definition correctly. All right. This now becomes the limit as h approaches 0 of bracket what? So what is f of 3 plus h? How do I input f of 3 plus h? Using f of x.
You put 2 parentheses, 3 plus h,
Perfect.
parentheses squared,
Perfect.
minus 4.
Good. And then we'll close bracket. Minus bracket.
2 times 3 parentheses squared minus 4
Perfect.
brackets
All
over
over it.
h.
Perfect. So this is what a lot of your whole homework and focus was on last night, right? Making sure that we can write it in and input the notation for f of 3 plus h minus f of 3 into the correct notation with the given function. Now, if I plug this in, I always get 0 over 0. Okay, so that's nothing to worry about. You don't have to show that. So when you get 0 over 0, it always like algebra. But the key concept that we learn is whenever you use the definition of derivative, you're going to have to do algebra. And most importantly, as we said yesterday, the goal is to do some algebra simplification with the numerator such that you can factor out an h from all of the terms in the numerator and then cancel out those h's. So it's just expanding. We just got to do some expanding. So limit as h approaches 0. And if you're like one of those students that's like, do I have to write limit as h approaches 0 every single time? My heart says yes. My feeling is that if you want to get proper understanding and not make a mistake later on, you want to have that limit as h approaches 0 written in front of every single one up until the last step when you plug in h is 0. All right, so we got to do some algebra here. So it's 2 parentheses. How do we expand 3 plus h squared? This is mostly algebra practicing of factoring. It's 3 plus h times 3 plus h. It is not 9 plus h squared. Remember, there's always going to be a middle term when the o and the I, if we were going to FOIL. But what do I get when I take a number, a binomial, and I square it? What do I get? In this case, 3 plus h squared.
It'd be like 9 plus 6h plus h squared.
Correct. Now, the reason why we get 6h is because the 3 gets multiplied by the h, and then the 3 gets multiplied by the h again. So the formula is that a plus b squared is equal to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. That's where that formula comes from. So it makes your life easier. If you feel that you need to write 3 plus h times 3 plus h and then FOIL out all the terms and then combine the h's, then do it. The most important thing here is that you get a correct answer. Correct answers are always better than fast answers. Minus 4, close bracket, minus bracket, and I get, what is that, 2 times 9.
Yeah, that's it. 2 times 9.
Minus 4. The other question that I get a lot from students is, do I have to show out every single algebraic step? No, you need to show me you need to show me what's plugged in, and then you'll need to show me what happens. But if you try to do too much mental math, even myself, who I feel has probably the strongest mental math out of us in this classroom right now, will make a mistake sometimes. So it's not, I'm not saying I'm going to make a mistake or you're going to make a mistake all the time. It's that it's more, if you show your work, you're going to be making less mistakes. And if you need help or you're like, I got the wrong answer, and you show me your work, we can track down where that happened a little bit better. It's just algebra right now. It's just algebra. Limit as h approaches 0. Now that gives me 18 plus 12h plus 2h squared minus 4 minus 18 plus 4 all over h. The 18s cancel each other out. The 4s cancel each other out. And as I said in yesterday's work, you should only end up with terms with h if you've done this correctly, because in your next step, you need to factor out an h. So I get h times 12 plus 2h. Are we okay with that in terms of all we were left with was what's 12h plus 2h squared? Are you okay with seeing that h times 12 plus 2h?
Is that the answer?
All over h. Not yet.
Oh.
So the h's cancel each other out. Limit h approaches 0 of 12 plus 2h. And what is the answer? How do I find the answer?
Plug in 0 for h, so your answer would be 12.
Now I'm going to circle that, because is that my final answer for the problem?
No, that's your answer to f prime of a.
Perfect. That's f prime of 3. Step 3, and I'm going to put a star here because you don't technically need this step all of the time, is to find f of 3. Now, some problems will give you f of 3, so you don't have to actually plug it in. They'll say at 2 comma 5, and so they're telling you that if you plugged in 2, you would get 5. How do I find f of 3? How do I find f of 3?
Plug the 3 into your equation?
Yep, so f of 3 equals 2 times 3 squared minus 4. I'm just plugging 3 into the function that was given, which gives me 2 times 9 minus 4, 18 minus 4, which gives me 14. And that is f of 3. All right, I have all of the work answers that I need. I have everything I need. So my answer now is y minus 14 equals 12 parentheses x minus 3. I just replaced the f of 3 and the f prime of 3 with their values. If you want to continue, and for delta math, I think it's a good practice, try doing it in slope intercept. If you write this answer in delta math, I'm pretty sure, I don't think the problem says in slope intercept, so if you wrote it like that, you'd get the full credit. But we're going to do slope intercept form, which gives me y minus 14 equals 12x minus 36. I'm distributing that 12 plus 14 plus 14. Y equals 12x minus 22. Both answers are the same thing. They're equivalent. In tomorrow's lesson, I'm going to show you the other type of function. It doesn't show up in any of the homework problems tonight. I'm going to show you how to do it with a rational function, a fraction with parentheses, a fraction problem. And we're going to introduce something called the normal line in tomorrow. So if you look at the weekly organizer, you can kind of get a preview of the lessons that are coming over. Maybe if you have a tutoring session, you should maybe see in terms of those ones to get a little bit of review. But this is what you're doing in your homework tonight. In your homework, we're looking for you to find, and it's just one of them, and I've given you 6 of these types of problems. So all of the problems are, what are the equation of the line tangent to this specific function at this given point? On your own, on your work on the side, you should be practicing how to finding f prime of a using the definition and then utilizing the point slope formula to write your final equation. And even taking it one step further, maybe inputting the equation of the line in y equals mx plus b to really show what you're doing. Try not to cut corners. Do the work as it's intended, and you'll do well. Tomorrow, normal line and fraction, how to do it with a fraction problem. And then you'll actually have a homework handout rather than Delta Math. Beyond that, that's what we have for today's lesson.